Hi class, let's start the chapter 1. Okay, so this is an introduction and this is the chapter 1, which is understanding Canadian business, which is chapter 1 stands for the dynamic business environment. This is an introduction for this chapter, so we will be talking about each part very briefly, and hopefully later on each part we will be explaining them in a separate chapter. So chapter 1 is about the dynamic of business environment, and here what we are looking for, we look at the fact that um, the learning objective is how illustrate how important of a key business fundamental to the wealth generation. Now we need to identify also the business stakeholders and their importance for nonprofit organization and business activities. The third learning objective is explaining how entrepreneurship is a critical to the and wealth of an economy, and list the 5 factors of production that contribute to the wealth. And then we will talk about the state of the 6 elements that make up the business environment and explain why the business environment is important to organization. And we will give examples of how the service sector has replaced the manufacturing as the principal providers of jobs and why manufacturing remains vital for Canada. Now, in the learning objective 1, which is we need to understand the business fundamental, which is we need to explain what's goods. Goods are tangible products such as computer, food, clothing, cars, appliance, anything that you can touch it and feel it, it's goods. The other side of it, we have what you call services, which is intangible products that cannot be held in your hand, such as education, healthcare, insurance, recreation, and travel and tourism. And we separate these two because each one has a different business approach to it. Now, there is a combination of these two. They don't go separately. Some of them, you have goods, sometimes you have service, and sometimes you have goods and you offer service as a support. And sometimes you have a service and you offer goods as a support. Let me give you an example. A good is any product that you pick up from Dollarama or from stores to consume it. And sometimes you buy a car because one car is providing better services. So the goods that they're offering is supported by the services, like changing oil, changing, insurance, having a, faster service, and all these parts is available. And sometimes you are, as a business, you want to provide services, but you have to have a product. And it's, as example, there is 2 very clear examples. Sometimes you go and get a mobile, a telco company promote a mobile, but actually they make you to sign a contract with them for the next 2 years or 3 years or 1 year to stay with them. So they want to provide you services, and their business comes in from service, but to do that, they have a product to support. And the best other example is what IBM does, is actually IBM in the industry sectors, they provide you with servers or mainframes, and actually what they're trying to do, they want to sell you the services that they do. So they provide you goods in order to sell them services. And then you have the extreme services, as we said here, such as healthcare, insurance, legal law department, and probably education is a very clear example. So, what's a business? Business is any activity that seeks to provide goods and services to other while generating a profit. So, the main goal of a business, if it's done profitable business, if it's a profitable business, is to seek to generate profit. Now, through providing you the good or service, or we said as a combination of them. Then we have what you call the entrepreneur, which is a person, or it could be an organization uh, who risk time, money to start and manage a business in order to generate a profit. Issues that we need to look at it when we do a business, we need to look at the revenue, profit, and loss. What's a revenue? Revenue, as all of us we know, that the total amount of money received during a given period of good for goods sold and services rendered. And from the financial resources. So you're probably selling goods, you're buying it at $10, you're selling it $15, your revenue. If you're selling 2 units, your revenue is 30. If you're selling 3 units, your revenue is 45. Or you could be doing your services to generate a revenue without taking out the cost and everything. Units multiply by the price that you sold. Then what you have comes in back to you is the profit. The profit is the amount of business earned above and beyond what is spent for salaries and expenses and other expenses. So let's assume you produce 1 unit, which is, and you sell it at $15. The cost of that unit probably could be at $12. And this $12 made of, I don't know, $10 of material goods and $2 you pay salary for somebody to put these together. It could be there is rent, there is an expenses, any other expenses. So you subtract the revenue from the cost, and that's what you call a profit. Then if you're not making positive number, then that's called a loss. So a loss when a business expenses are more than the revenue. But we know when we do business or we do entrepreneurship, we have a risk. And a risk is about the chance of loss, the degree of probabilities of loss. So there is two things. The degree of the probabilities or the chance of loss. And the second thing is the amount that possible loss. We need to look at these two things, time and it could be a time and money also. Sometimes the chance of loss is very low, but when it happens, it makes you lose all your money. And sometimes the chance of loss could be high or low, but when it happens, you don't lose that much money. Better example, say you have a product that you want to ship it from India to Canada. If you put all your product in one ship and the ship, say, sink, sank in the water, so your loss is huge, the amount. But what's the chance of that ship to sink is probably 1%. So the percentage happening is low, but the amount you're losing a lot. Let's say you're getting said that you are shipping your product in a 10% of it on that ship. and you know there is some kind of a war in the Red Sea or something like that, and there is a 50% that the lost ship will sink. And that's the percentage that's happening. So there is two things. The amount that you want to lose, you're going to lose, and the percentage, they will determine how much you're trying to sell and how much you're supposed to make a profit. We'll go on details talking about this in further chapters. The other thing that we have a tendency of not thinking about it most of the time is the standard of living and the quality of life. And the standard of living is the amount of good and service people can buy with the money they have. Let's assume you make $1,000 in Canada and you make the same $1,000 in India. I'm pretty sure you will be making a better life. You will buy more if you make that $1,000 in India. So the standard of living, the amount of good and service people can buy with the money they have. But then comes in the other things that you need to look at it is the quality of life, the general of well-being of a society in terms of political freedom, natural environment, education, healthcare, safety, amount of leisures, and the rewards that add to the satisfaction enjoy the others goods and service that's provided. So if you're making a $10,000 in Iraq, you're not going to be selecting that over making a 5,000 in India because the quality of life in India probably better than Iraq in some cases, or the quality of life of Canada probably better than Iraq in some cases. So that also you take into consideration the quality of life and the standard of living. Responding to a various stakeholders. Who is the stakeholders? Now, when you, as a simple thing, when you get on the boat and you're going from point A to B, you have one person with you. That person is also a stakeholder with you, whether you're going for a leisure or you're going for a mission, the both of you is the stakeholder. So the stakeholders are all the people who stand to gain or lose by the policies and the activities of business. So let's assume he doesn't like to go to the island B and he wants to go to island A. If you go to go island A, he is a stakeholder, so he's enjoying it just like you. But if you're going to the island B, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much as you do. So you need to take into consideration all the stakeholders in the business. Who is the stakeholders? Stakeholders could be consumers or customers, employees, employer, financial institution like a bank who's giving you that money, or a credit union, investors or shareholders who's putting their money in, environmentalists, people who is taking care of the environment, not to, disrupt the environment. The government are stakeholders because they have to collect some taxes. Suppliers who is giving you their products or their money or whatever, and you have the dealers, retailers, maybe people who is buying from you, and the surrounding communities who buying from you or selling to you or cooperating with you on issues. So these could be a combination of them. Now, doesn't have to be all of them in as well, but majority of these will be as stakeholders if you start your own business. So the stakeholders, as we said, is the customers, surrounding communities, uh, environmentalists, dealers, retailers, employers or employees, sorry, the government, because you're the employer, so the employees, the government leaders collect the taxes or doing something good for the environment, for the people, for the country, suppliers, we could be the media, the bankers, All these are the stakeholders and shareholders also. Now, change in the international trading patterns. We know for the last 20 years, there is a huge shift in trading is happening. International business, it's more than a local business. And lots of companies, they are in the market to supply the international customers. For example, there is some stuff that you need to know about what's an offshoring. It's about sourcing a part of the purchase input outside of the country. Let's say Louis Vuitton, for example. They have their products produced not in France, not in Europe. They have it produced, for example, in Thailand, and with the certain qualities, and they are doing an offshore business. IT has very much into offshoring also. So in India, there's lots of IT companies who works for the American companies who they have some kind of a software to be designed and implemented by the Indian IT companies. Then what you have is called outsourcing. There is some part of the business that you don't want to, it's not your core business. It probably is something that you can probably make a better, lower your costs or minimize your risk by outsourcing that part of your business to a third party. So outsourcing is assessing a various functions such as accounting, production, security, maintenance, and legal work to outside organization. You might don't have your security from the same company. You are hiring security company who's more specialized in that and costs you less. You outsource it to them, or probably they can do a better job than your employees when it comes to security. This helps the company to be more competitive, but may impact the local community because of the job may be lost. So when you're outsourcing in the international business, or you might affect these people who in your community, and it doesn't have to be in a different country. It could be you're outsourcing to a different city, and it doesn't have to be a service. Might be in a product initial setup of some units before you do your final production. And then you have what you call the insourcing, which is pretty much every company trying to do insourcing as long as is a profitable for them or can mitigate the risk. And the insourcing is assigning a various functionality that could to an outside organization to employees in the companies. Like when you decide to develop a software or implement a software, you don't hire a third party company to implement for you. You tell your team within the IT department to implement that softwares. That's insourcing. So using principles in nonprofit organization. In the very old days, one of the first jobs that I've done in Canada is working for a nonprofit organization, which is owned by United Way. My bosses still remember he said that we should not be carrying an updated mobile. We should not be wearing a very shining clothes and all these things and shining cars. And the reason because he was competing over, the company was competing over grants. And these grant, people who granting you the money, they want to see that the money that they're granting is not going to the employees of the organization, it's going to the goal of the organization. So he's running it at minimizing the cost, very effective, very business wise, in order to run his style of business, their style of business, and was very successful. The nonprofit organization, we know something like the NGO is very famous. An organization whose goal do not include making a personal profit for its owners or the organization. Revenues greater than the expenses are used to carry out the social or educational goals for the organization. So we had a minimum expenses and we generate lots of revenue, and that revenue was spent to the needy people, people who just came into this country, people who need the support. So we were able to do that because what we have generated as revenue is much, much higher than our expenses. So we were able to contribute. Then what you have is the social entrepreneurs. Is the social entrepreneurs means they use business principle to start and manage a nonprofit organization and help address social issues. And you see them a lot on the um, internet. They trying to address the environment or trying to address some issues worldwide. The nonprofit organization are run as a regular business without the profit motivation. They're not there into the profit, but they want to manage to have as much as possible revenue and minimizing their costs. So the excess of that money can be contributed for the needy environment or needy people or whatever their goal is. Now, the question here, when I also teach a course in the entrepreneurship, do we need to work for others or to do an entrepreneurship? And they both have some advantage and disadvantage. And the advantage of working for others include like you mitigating the risk, minimizing the risk. Risk is assumed by others. So if they go lost, you don't lose, you just get fired or you quit. And also workers receives benefits such as paid vacation, time, and health insurance. On other hand, entrepreneurs assume all the risk of starting and running a business, but they might be making more profit. There may be a great financial reward, also other positive rewards that away from financial, like supporting families, contributing to communities, all these things. So there might be a great financial reward, as I said, but many new business, usually, as you know, it fails. And this is where I usually clearly indicate that you need to write a business plan before you start your business, a complete one. But why entrepreneur is important in creating wealth? Well, factor of production, include land or natural resource like oil or land that you grow as a farmer. Laborers, people who works for you, works in the companies. This is a factor of production. Capital goods such as machineries, tools, building, money. In capital goods, you need to know if you take a hammer and you use it in your home, that's not a capital good. That becomes a consumer good. But the same hammer, if you use it to generate businesses, cut the trees or whatever you do with it to sell the end product, so that becomes a capital good. So might be a capital good something that has a couple of faces, double faces. So the capital goods such as machineries, tools, and buildings, money to purchase these goods is not considered as a factor of production, but what they produce, they are the factor of production. Entrepreneurship and part of production and knowledge. So in general, is if we're looking at it, is the five factors of production is the land, the labor, the capital or capital good, the entrepreneurships, and the knowledge that you have. So the more you have knowledge, the better you more produce. Let's say you have a knowledge of one place that they have 100 trees and some place has 10 trees. So this knowledge is important. You go in a place where you can cut 100 trees than 10 trees. You have a knowledge in this part of this sea or river, there's more fish. So you can go and catch more fishes there. And that's one of the factors of production. Now, the business environment include the surrounding factors that either help or hinder the development of businesses. And we spoke about, your when you do your business, there's lots of stakeholders and the environment involved with it, which is anything surrounding the factors that either help or hinder. Like, for example, could be the legal. Some countries would not allow an expatriate or somebody without start his business without having a partner, or they're not allowing, or a communist country, for example, they don't allow easily to have your own business. The economic situation, maybe you are in a recession, the technology maybe not there. When we talk about technology, it doesn't have to be a software technology, is using automations. There is a competitive, lots of people doing the same job that you do, so you're not allowed to, you cannot make a profitable business. It could be the social, they don't accept the situation. For example, creating a nightclub in a small village, conservative village, and the global, um, for example, right now, you don't produce clothing in Canada, outsource it to be produced in Bangladesh, in Vietnam, in all other countries. Those are the global issues also involved in it. But the business environment is, as we said, is a mix of a global business environment. They feed into the quality of imperative. If there is a free trade happening or blocking, the global competition or competitive. But as a business growth and job creation is influenced by the little bit closer to your own business, which is the economic environment, the income and expenditures, how much income you can generate, how much spending, the currency shift, whether is the currency is going more expensive, cheaper, easier to trade the currency, sell and buy the currency, the economic situation, is it a booming, there is a demand for your products or not. The other thing that you need to look at it is the technological environment. The information and technologies is important that can, improve your production definitely, and make it more effective. The database, the information that you have, and today definitely the internet can make a big shift, big changes in your business. Then you need to look at the social environment, at the diversities there, the demographic change.